Hello, thank you to everyone who's been following my rehandling project on this Bastinelli Primal. Here's where we're up to now. As you can see, the Twinecarta wrap is complete. And my initial plan was to just have this make a straight transition here. But once I had this hollowed out, I really noticed the lack of something there, such that I thought I was going in the wrong direction. And once I had the ball of twine, because, once I wrapped it, it was this big old ball like that I've progressively carved down. But that ball kind of made sense. I pretty much took it out here, but I left a little here and a little there. So you get this kind of compound curve. Which is kind of by way of choils, This stain here is because there was a little gap there, and I filled that with super glue and sanding. And it looks terrible right now. There's a slight equivalent on the other side. That should sand out to some degree, and later I'm going to kind of polish this all up, and I think it'll just disappear. Hopefully. And I'm working on the buttons now on my mini lathe for this. So I'm going to have some little stag buttons that I can put a pin through. And actually, the original setup here used these screws that actually stood just a little proud, if I recall, of because I deepened this hole here. So they're actually accounted for here in the kydex somewhat. You can see that black spot there, and this shiny spot there. So my thinking is to make these little stag pins a little bit proud, not just for the kydex, but I guess the kydex kind of gave me the idea, that would work with the kydex, but also I think it'll look cool if they're a little proud and give you something to grip onto in certain grip positions. So I have made some little cuts with this, and oh my goodness, that is a wicked factory edge. Maybe we should have a look at the behind the edge thickness just quickly, because that might be worthy of reporting. Whatever they've done, I'm liking the geometry. Just a second here. Oh, not that thin, but I mean that's pretty thin for a factory edge. Should be a little thicker up here, I'd expect. Yeah. So we're kind of around 20 down here and around 30 up there. I'm sure that will be deliberate. 35 even. Don't know, I want to talk more about it. What else can I say? It's been very interesting, the thing about the stag, because I'm usually about symmetry. I like to try and get everything lined up. We're not perfect on this either, but it's pretty decent. A little wibbly. But of course, once you have this organic form in there, because I wanted to keep as much of the stag, I'm taking off a tiny little bit there and a tiny little bit here, but I'm just trying to keep as much of the piece as possible, apart from the bit I cut off there. So I was holding it in my hand and playing with it for quite some time, and eventually I figured, well, this is kind of how it seems to line up, and it is pretty close, even though it looks really squiffy. You know, look like it's got this tremendous kick in it, but the kick is down the end. So here, let me do a thing actually. I'll trace my finger along the high spot here. So that the line really, the line of the spine of the handle lines up about as well as it could with the blade, for this line also to line up here, and here it tails off more there, you know. But that makes it sit in the hand in quite a nice way. Also, you know, this cut here, these two cuts were how the piece came to me. But because it was cut lower here and higher there, that, you know, your palm kind of wraps around that bit, and it just works. It really works in this position, in like a chest pull cut. Really awesome. I was doing some chest pull cuts with this earlier, and wow, the power. Even pical, you know, you can hold it like this, and it's got enough of a kick out. You know, you're not gonna quite be able to touch yourself with the point, even like so. This point, I don't know how long that's going to last. I mean, it'll depend on how much I use the knife and how I use it. But if it were a little bit less aggressive, I think that could be nice, you know. It's got a very tight curve on it compared to the folding hook bills that I use. But I don't think that's going to present an issue, really. I think it's, you know, I mean, if you're using it for whittling or what have you, it makes it a little less practical. But for going out and pruning and slashing and stuff, I think it's going to work great. Nearly there. Thanks for watching.